You know, if this was a much bigger canvas, then depending on what it is I'm trying to paint, yeah, I'd probably spray the canvas down. You know, especially with the if I had a bigger brush, really gives a nice smooth watered down effect, watered down look. You know. Okay, so here starting to look as a 3D form to it, right? Let's just start adding some blues. Okay. Now, I'm not gonna discuss much about uh, color theory in terms of expressionism, but more of application this time around. Okay. When I get into other videos, we talk about medians of color more. Like red is for fire or for something that's very powerful. Something like that. Where green is something that's it could be used for jealousy. And more the emotions being conveyed. Okay. This time around, we're just gonna discuss like in terms of color theory. If I add a red to a green, right? You're thinking, well, what are you doing that for? It actually creates a shadow effect, right? So, if I want to add, the darkness down here, right? I'm just going to add, use that red there, and suddenly I've created shadows, right? Without using black. Black is very, you know, uh, 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 negative. It's not, not necessarily negative color, but when you add black uh, to a painting, it's basically going to do what white does. It's going to cover everything. It's going to be a very dominant color on that particular area, right? It, it's there's a good chance it's just not going to portray well in terms of being a part of that object, you know. Um, unless say like black is part of the Jawa's face there, then yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and use black. You know, but black isn't just the only color, right? For the Jawa's face, I mean, there's light reflection coming off, so there's definitely a little bit of grays going on there, and I can even add some darker blue, right, um, to give it more depth. Okay, so let's see. More blue here, indigo blue. I can see it's starting to pop out more. Have give it some life, right? Okay. Go ahead and clean this up a little here. Yeah. To be honest, I haven't done a still life in quite a long time, so my technical skills are a little rusty. I'll be honest with you. But in terms of how I'm actually going about it, with my techniques, those are accurate. Right. Going from light to dark, particular brushes I'm using, making sure I'm showing the reflections properly and everything, you know. To get more of a much more realistic look, like it does look like glass, like a bottle that you see there. It would just take me more time. That's it. That's one thing about doing art. When you learn techniques and you learn this stuff, and then you don't do something for a while, then you go back, to it maybe after months or a year. It's like riding a bike. Everything will come back to you and stuff when you start looking at it. Getting and you start remembering how to apply. Your hand starts remembering the brush strokes and the imagery and all that, right? Some more water, tap that off. And then of course, like anything else, just depends on how much time you put into it, how much practice, right? Get your desired effect. You know, since this bottle is also cylindrical, right? It's not just gonna be side to side, up and down. I'm gonna have some cross shadows happening, cross tones, cross reflections. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and switch brushes now. Go back to the liner detail brush. Give it a good washing, good rinse, good cleaning. Put it back. All right, to the liner. Okay. So go ahead and pick my greens out. Add some blue to it there. All right. Let's really get into some defining here. When I was growing up, I watched Bob Ross a lot. Before him was this German painter, Oils of Painting, The Joys of Painting, excuse me. It was a TV show, and they did scenic landscape paintings with oils. It's a half-hour show. It's a great show. I love watching it. Learned a lot in terms of using the brushes, the palette knives, to do certain techniques, for those types of concepts. And years later, this illustrator, Captain Mark, came on. It was funny. He worked with markers and pens, and his whole thing was about doing futuristic cityscapes, kind of in cartoon nature, but it was all about 2-point perspectives, you know, so that 3-dimensional look and everything. But he always had these little robot characters, and you know, and he always used geometric shapes and whatnot. That was always an interesting show to watch. So then you get into the 3D effect of objects and imagery. They'd always say in every show, you know, doesn't matter what you're doing, you spend 30 minutes a day doing some art. That's it, you know. Just set aside 30 minutes a day, you know, to create something. It doesn't have to be anything big, right? Spend some time exercising your creative mind, you know. Staying in touch with different mediums, different concepts, different art styles. You know, that was his thing, and I have to agree. You know, you got 30 minutes every day. You can just doodle. You know, doesn't matter. Cut paper, make shapes out of paper. You know, just use that creative mind. Have fun. That's really what this is all about. Just having fun. So when you start seeing, you know, little bumps like that, that's the texture of the canvas, right? And you know you got plenty of paint on your brush. You just add a little water to your brush, right? And then you just go over that. Covers it right up. Okay? There you go. Just means that your paint's starting to dry out. That's what that means. I don't want to get too detailed with the reflections right now, you know, in terms of this video. There's just not a lot of time, but you're getting the overall idea, right? So that's the important part for this series. You know, as you get the basic understanding, maybe a little more deeper understanding of techniques and how to use the paint and everything for this particular video, and then you know, then you just go from there, right? You know, you learn different stuff, just playing around with the paint and the colors, you know. So I mean, what if I took a little purple here, right? Added that to the mix. What do you think it's going to do there? It's going to give me a darker shade that I can add in certain areas where I know white's not really hitting the bottle at all, right? Tap off that extra excess water, get that in there. Yeah. Taking a look at my objects. Making sure now I'm starting to fill in all the gaps, right? So say like here, you know, it's a little transparent, right? Which means that there's just a little too much water. That's okay. You just let it dry, right? Work in a different section. Once it dries, you just go back and add more paint over that. You know? That way you make it more opaque. Make it proper. What you're looking at. You know, so starting to come out, starting to come alive, right? Let's clean this up. Dry it off a little bit. Make sure I got some water here. Now, acrylic paints, right? So you're getting really involved and you just kind of forget to keep it wet. Only the top of the glob of paint's gonna dry, so you know you kind of just press down on it, and you know, and then you'll see it's underneath that top dry layer is still wet paint underneath. So it's not like the whole glob of paint's been ruined, right? A little coffee, keep me going. All right, let's take some white here. Let's take some of that olive green. And maybe we'll add a little true green to it. Yeah, there we go. All right. Come down the stem. Start adding some highlights. You know, filling in those white areas a little bit. I always want to see, you know, like there's those glares there, those reflective glares. I don't want to cover the whole canvas. You know, I want to leave some white exposed. But I will go over those exposed areas with just plain white when everything else dries. Make sure I got some true white coming out, right? Because you know this is a pre-gessoed canvas. So if I brought it up against the white there, you can see there's a difference. You know, the titanium white's it's a true white. All right, this is gesso is yeah, it's like a dull white. You know, I don't want to say it's gray, but it doesn't have much vibrancy to it that a titanium white does. I want to make sure I get up in here, the lip of the bottle. Let's get some more white on there. A little more white. That's the thing with glass is, you know, because it's so reflective, you know, it's gonna have a lot of different tones, a lot of different tints and shadows to it. I just want to try and give that effect, you know, glass effect. All right. Reflection. You can see by the shape of the glass, you know, up here, you know, it's going to be a thin line, and as it comes down, it's going to get a little wider, right? Because it's curved, you know, it has that curved shape to it. So I want to make sure that when I'm painting, looks like it has that curved shape as well, has the 3D effect to it, right? In terms of trying to match reflections, I don't have to be perfect right now. Like I said, it's just the interest of time. But I do want to try and make sure I'm showing a cylindrical 3D effect. It's matching what I'm looking at. So, when you pick your objects, pick something that you're going to be interested in painting, right? Don't pick something that's just boring and isn't going to really excite you, right? To sit in front of and try and replicate and everything. There's I've done work for clients, been commissioned from time to time, where the subject matter is boring. Nothing I ever do on my own, by myself, on my own accord. But you want to do art for a living. Sometimes it's just the way it goes, right? You do things other people want. They don't have much interest for you personally, creatively, and everything. Doesn't mean you can't still explore the techniques. Always explore the techniques, right? Always practice your techniques. But conceptually, it just might not really interest you very much. But you still have to, find excitement in what you're doing in some way. Because if you don't, it's going to be reflective in the final piece, right? It really will. I got hired to do a billboard once, and I didn't want it too fancy, so I gave them something that was much better than just basic, but wasn't looking like a photo image, It was a kind of more of a detailed cartoon style image of an athlete. Conceptually, it wasn't, anything I was overly drawn into, but I made it my own, and I had fun. I had a lot of fun doing it. A lot of different colors in there. I played with color theory in terms of using complementary colors, opposite colors and everything. But when I took the designs to the client, the rough designs and everything, they thought it was too much detail, and they better explain what it is they wanted. And all they wanted was just flat colors, no tints or shading. There's something you'd find in a coloring book and whatnot. And I said, "Oh, okay, that's what you want. You're paying for it." Try to explain to them it's not very eye-catching. People drive by to see this flat-colored, solid image, and everything. I certainly wouldn't have gone to that store, if I saw that. But hey, it's what they wanted, so I drew it up, and then told them they can even have somebody else paint it. I didn't even put my name on it. And that's how. That's how much it was against even my own skill level. There's nothing I wanted to represent myself as, so I didn't even put my name on it. Wasn't worth it. Never added my portfolio. or anything like that. Sometimes it's just the way it goes, right? You know, that's the business part of it. That is the business part of doing what you do. You know, um, take the good with the bad. You know, there's times where you get asked to do a piece of artwork that you just all warm inside. You know, you love sitting down to it. You love working on it. You know, you're putting your heart and soul into it and everything. You know, and the client's just utterly ecstatic. You know, the final piece. You know, whatnot. So yeah, you know, um, it balances itself out, right? So if you want to do this for a living, you know, there are the pros and cons. But once again, like I said, you know, you learn from it every time. Every time you learn it. You know, when I did that athlete, I learned, you know, utilizing the colors and the shapes. Composition, right? Composition was important. You know, what composition is where you're putting your image on the canvas, you know, or on your piece of paper, you know, whatever you're working with, and how you're gonna place certain objects, you know. So yeah, you know, you try and make it center, right? Because it's a still life painting, you know, say there was something else involved in it, you know, if I wasn't doing a still life and I was doing something that was more surreal, or just a fantasy style, you know, it's something coming over here, whatever, or where the lines are going, right? You know, I don't want to have, you know, the certain folds of the backdrop, you know, take me right off the canvas. No, I don't want that. I want to be able to make sure that my eye is flowing around the canvas, right? So that way, you know, your eye's constantly moving around, but it doesn't leave the borders, you know. Those are all important parts to think about as well. You know, a lot of people don't realize just how much it takes to create a good piece of artwork. You know, you got colors, you got composition, you know, you got different styles, right? And then everybody, you know, everybody has a different liking to different pieces of art. You know, some people like surrealism, some people like cubism, you know, some people just like to have abstractionism, you know, abstract objects that literally don't have any definitive representation of anything. It's just a use of different colors, you know, it set a mood, right? Some people just like that. And there's nothing wrong with that, you know. It's all about, you know, art is a personal thing, right? From the artist to the person viewing it. We're not even talking about conceptually speaking. You know, we're just talking about different styles and everything. All right, so I'm going to try and put in lighter colors here. Really make that reflection pop. Just put in some straight white. You know, just a little bit, just some highlights, nothing big. You know, just some indications where the light is, right? Need a little more water. Just gonna make sure it's looking like glass. Don't a little too much paint on the brush. You know, that's another thing too. You know, is always look at your brush. Make sure you don't have a big glob of paint on there. You know, be mindful of that. So when you lay that down, you know, find yourself with a little mistake you gotta fix up. Think about that sort of thing, right? Very important, right? You know, say you know, I've been working with this brush for a while now. You know, this paint on the brush will start drying inside the bristles, so you always want to keep the brush wet, keep that from happening. And you know, and you don't want to have too much paint build up inside either. It's going to give a sloppy look as well. All right. We're getting somewhere with this now. So, you know, kind of recap, right? I used a flat brush for my base color, and I came in with my angled brush, do a little more definition, but in bigger areas. You know, then I took my liner. Now I'm really defining reflections and shape of the bottle. Let's add a little more purple and blue. Right, some water there. Try and get that glass effect. Let's get into darkening up some of this here, right? Like I said, you know, start with your light colors, like I did. Because it's a lot easier to paint dark colors over light colors and get them to cover up than it is to paint dark and then try and cover up dark colors with light colors. Take a lot more layers of paint, right? And that's just more product you're gonna use up, you know, more time, you know, and everything. So and don't be afraid either, you know. I mean, you start getting into the details, you know. It's all about the layers, dropping layers of paint, right? And that's how you're really gonna start getting that realism, just by showing layers. You know. Come back over in these areas that were watered down earlier, so they're kind of transparent. And I'm going to add in some more paint over them, darken them up. Let's get a little green in there. You want some liquid green, dark green, right? Make sure that these colors blend in, you know, with the rest of the bottle that's already been painted. You know, so I'm just gonna, if I just add in blue and purple, you know, you'll see that color separation, right? So it's gonna won't look like one piece of glass. You know, you gotta add in just a little green, just a touch, not to be a lot, but you add in a little green to make sure that you got a good blend of colors, right? Work on the base here, make sure I got a good defined shape on the base. Now, throw in a little scratchiness, right? So a little scratchiness is basically, you know, when the paint's kind of half dry and you don't have a lot of paint on your brush, you know, you just kind of lightly, mind you, just kind of rough it around a little, right? And then you're going to get these little scratchy looking areas, you know. It won't be solid. The paint will be opaque, but it won't be one solid stroke, right? So then it creates a layered effect, you know, on those areas you're painting, and then it creates more depth, right? That's really the word I'm looking for. It creates more depth. Let's get back up on the top here, and then I'll move on to another part. Okay. I want to make sure that, you know, when I'm looking at this bottle here, make sure that these edges are well defined. All right. Now, when you're doing this, this is when you start really training your eye. Okay. Pay attention to what the light is doing, right? Where's my light source coming from? How is it reacting to the objects that I'm painting, right? How is it separating those objects visually? Okay. Remember, if you don't know this, you know, light reflects off of everything that it touches, right? So what you're gonna have, when you look very, 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 very closely, is you're gonna see a separation of light from the object, right? It's a weird thing, okay. But if you train your eye to look for it, you're gonna see that light reflecting off, okay. Especially, you know, like here, I can look at the bottle, right? If I look at the very edge of the bottle, I can see that light reflecting off because there's the yellow blanket. It's lighter on this edge versus if I go off just a millimeter, it's a little darker or a little more pure, you know, of the yellow hue, right? And that's, you know, when I get into doing the background, I'll show you what I'm talking about on that, okay? But look for that, right? It's going to be very, very important, you know, when you're doing still life objects, you know, or you're trying to show light, right? Light reflection. It's going to define that reflection better, you know, visually. So when you're playing with paints, you know, it's all about looking at the colors. All about looking at the colors. You know, there are colors there that, you know, you don't recognize regularly, you know, unless you're really focused and you know, you're really focused and deeply intent in magnifying what it is you're looking at, right? You know, I used to, for fun, you know, and for practice, I'd be out walking around